and issues tonight. Definitely a lot of not Israel, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, sort of Palestine's involved with this, but mostly or conservative Inc. So we're going to have a bunch of topics tonight, but conservative Inc. is kind of going to be the main thread that kind of connects these topics. So some of the topics will include the pro-life debate versus the pro-life industry, and certain person at the Babylon Bee being very blue pilled on this. So we're going to talk a lot about the Ben Shapiro Candace Owens thing, which I think a lot of people are kind of excited to talk about. We're going to discern Candace Owens versus Ben Shapiro, and I don't know how much you're informed on this topic about their beef.
I've been pretty up to speed on and seeing what a lot of conservatives have been saying. So it's actually interesting that it's actually being covered in relatively short order. Like they're not waiting a week before commenting on it. So you're getting, which might have been more the case with the Crowder drama because him leaving the Blaze kind of prevents Blaze from commenting on it, and not everyone wants to touch the him Daily Wire beef first.
A lot of people were quick to touch his divorce news, though.
But
That's true.
But this one, everyone's jumping on this one.
And it is reflective of a sort of a civil war on the right, which to some degree I understand. I think some of it is just kind of baseless. Like some people don't like what it takes to win a war. And that makes them nervous, that makes them scared, that makes them reluctant. And you see that in dead societies, in my opinion. Like, look at South Korea. Like in the Korean War, they took care of the communists. They killed a lot of communists in Korea. But now you see the Koreans walking that back. They're not proud of that. And obviously, there's some World War II examples, like, America's not happy about, firebombing Tokyo or whatever, but you more see that with firebombing Dresden is seen as crossing the line, even though it wasn't the Wehrmacht that the British declared war on, it was Germany. If you ever read a declaration of war, they're really short, by the way, but that's who they declared war on. So Israel is doing what it takes to win a war, and that makes some people on the right uncomfortable. Some people on the right just reject Zionism, so there's a bit of a reactionary thing to it as well. I think Candace Owens has the race thing going on, where I don't think Black people really identify Jews as a victim class. And I don't think that's going to change. So those are some of my opening thoughts on, why the Civil War exists. Do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I do think there's growing tension with I guess I don't want to say just Jewish presence in the establishment, but let's go ahead and use that language because you have AI PAC, which Candace Owens was directly going after, and people are starting to notice that presence on the right. Obviously, you have a lot of anti-war sentiment, which Trump ushered in the party of or the Republicans as a party against war, as opposed to Bush with endless wars.
To add on to that, Trump was the realization of the Ron Paul wing of the Republican Party in terms of foreign policy ambitions. He was the realization of that. He was the successor of that. That's why the Ron Paul supporters from 2012 did not back Rand Paul, who I would have thought was more electable, and you thought that the Republican Party could unite around Rand Paul maybe in 2015, right? But that didn't happen. That crowd went to Trump. So, but yeah, I think.
And then the third part being,
You're right.
the victimhood mentality of one group is perfectly acceptable. But again, I think people are starting to be like to notice that, hey, who was pushing the nonsense on the university campuses, and now that it's turned against their preferred group, it's all of a sudden taboo. And that's
Elon Musk made that point.
Elon Musk made that point. Matt Walsh has made that point, and of course Charlie Kirk made that point.
You
So
know,
not
I
the
forgot about the Charlie Kirk thing, but we can. I have that clip still ready from last week because I don't delete any tabs. And you sent me this. But first, I want to let you know Evangelical Dark Web is a Christian news gathering and commentary ministry. So you can support us over at our Patreon-like system at evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. And that helps you direct the content and research of this ministry. For instance, that John Hagee video was all done because of you guys that are supporters over at evangelicaldarkweb.org. So this is something you sent me last week. It's Lauren Witzke published this video.
Here's what what Jewish Democrats or Jews in general are going to have to make a decision. Until you crush the cultural Marxist lens of which they view the world, you will never actually be able to build support for Israel. You cannot subsidize support and play footsie with cultural Marxism and have a future for the state of Israel. So you have to choose. And Jews have been some of the largest funders of cultural Marxist ideas and supporters of those ideas over the last 30 or 40 years. Stop supporting causes that hate you. Now you might say, well, how is one thing applied to the other? If you train a generation to view everything through an oppressor-oppressed lens, they will apply that lens to the Israel-Hamas conflict. The same way that they apply it to the police issue, the gender issue, good guy, bad guy, somebody on top, somebody on bottom. Until you cleanse that ideology from the hierarchy and the academic elite of the West, there will not be a safe future. I'm not going to say Israel won't exist, but Israel will be in jeopardy as long as the Western children of the West, are being taught with primarily Jewish dollars subsidizing it to view everything through oppressor-oppressed dynamic. Until you shed that ideology, you will not be able to build the case for Israel because they view Israel as an oppressor. Here's what...
So your thoughts on that clip from Charlie Kirk, the Dispy cringe Zionist.
Yeah, and that's why I was actually kind of impressed that he even went there, and that shows that maybe he's a little bit more, based on certain things than he lets on. But obviously, he is probably more or less beholden, and he knows that these interests exist, especially on the right. But yeah, spot on the money, and that might be the best way to appeal to those normie boomer cons is this Charlie Kirk angle. I don't want to call it like a third way, but he's able to kind of straddle that line that maybe gets enough boomers to buy in. Now, the
I
problem
gotta disagree with that.
Oh, I haven't gotten to the problem.
Okay.
The problem is that there's a certain event in history that is the ultimate victim oppressor narrative that a certain group will never let go because it is the ultimate. It's more potent than slavery. So until they let that go, then their whole victim oppression narrative can never go away because it's the bedrock of a certain narrative.
Okay, so here's where I don't think that Charlie Kirk is right or making a point. I mean, first of all, better men than him have tried to make that exact same point. And I'm talking about Winston Churchill tried to make that exact same point. Because what Charlie Kirk is trying to do is use Zionism to appeal to Jews to forego Bolshevism. That is the same exact argument that Winston Churchill tried almost 100 years ago. Did it work when Winston Churchill tried it? No. How is it going to work if Charlie Kirk tries it?
I'm not saying it'll work on Jews particularly, but
that's who he's talking to, though.
He's talking to them, but I think the playbook works better on the boomers, those normies. I mean, right now, I think like public support for ceasefire, despite for whatever reason, whether they're pro-Hamas, whether they're just anti-war, whatever their undergirding reasons, the public support for ceasefire is greater. So, I mean, the market
greater than what? The lack of support for it?
I think it is a majority at this point.
Okay.
So, a majority of Americans favor ceasefire if you believe polls, so I think the appetite for this rhetoric exists now that probably was not present during the days of Winston Churchill.
I don't know, because I'm a little fuzzy on what year he exactly wrote it, because I think it was written well before World War II, like in the 1920s. And when, I guess around the time of the Balfour Declaration and all that other stuff. So I'm a little fuzzy on when it was written. But nonetheless, that's greater men than him have tried that argument. And I think you saw the Soviets kind of respond to that argument, and they kind of withdrew their support for Israel after affirming it in the UN. They kind of withdraw their support. And, they make proxy allies out of Israel's initial enemies. So I think the Bolsheviks in the Soviet Union recognized that you could pit the two against each other, but I think the majority of those who would favor Zionism to Bolshevism live in Israel, because isn't that where you would naturally want to go if you believe in this ideology? And that's why you see Democrats vote, what, 80% Jewish? Or, sorry, Jews vote 80%
I mean, it's
Democrat,
like I might be more 70, but
77, 75, mid 70s.
I just think it's better. It works better. It's a message that works a little bit better on normies. I mean, it's the same rhetoric that allows you to say expose the AD, like ban the ADL. It's kind of like that messaging. It's if you play that line and pit like the normies against the ADL and their rhetoric. I mean, I think the playbook exists if enough people would use it.
So the Charlie Kirk thing is somewhat of a follow-up to the last video I did on Charlie Kirk, where I talked about basically he's worshiping Israel. He's worshiping Jews. And, he's praying at the Western Wall, which I say Christians should not do. That's not a holy site for Christians whatsoever. Like, that is not morally different than praying at doing a Hajj. Like, there's nothing there for Christians to really pray to or pray at.
Or Catholic relics or crucifixes and the rosary as some,
But
all the things that Protestants call idols and the Western Wall is not one of them.
Apparently not. And so we talked about that. So Charlie Kirk, wants to say, bless those who bless, God blesses those who bless Israel, to mean modern day Israel. And then he wants to triangulate Winston Churchill style between Zionism and Bolshevism. How coherent is that message? Because he is trying to target Jews with that conversation. But he's also trying to appear base, but it's like your cringe factor is so high, even this statement doesn't really balance out the force, if you know what
I mean, again, as much as we harp against Charlie Kirk, I do think it's still positive development in his direction. And I'll give him credit for at least making the point. I mean, again, others are making the point. So when you get like a Matt Walsh type who is probably one of the more influential guys over at Daily Wire, when you start getting them subtly slipping this idea in there,
I don't know if Ben Shapiro's slipped this idea out there yet.
No, because again, I don't think it'll convince the Jewish Americans. I just think it will convince. I think it plays better with normies because you're almost killing them with kindness to win the argument.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a very successful strategy. I don't think it works. I don't think it converts Jews to Christianity.
No, I don't think it's going to be effective on that group. But
you know whose parents converted to Christianity? Mother, specifically. Karl Marx. Now, from what I've researched, they didn't have a strong faith in that family, but I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, so some people who I guess use it to hate Jews by saying that Karl Marx was Jewish, which is technically true from the modern Israeli definition, but he technically grew up in a Christian convert family, at least, or an inter-ethnic marriage or interreligious marriage. So I do want to talk about the Babylon Bee for a second. So we have a lot to talk about. Glenn Beck is the initial inspiration, but I do want to cover the Babylon Bee's Joel Berry going full Reddit-tard, arguing against punishing baby killers. I wrote this article last night. It's kind of been something going on all week. Smash Bales, if you're in the chat or if you watch this, shout out to you for kind of drawing out this discussion. So he tweeted the other day, pro-life industry, abortion is murder, abolitionist, you're right, and women who kill their unborn children are murderers and should be treated as such. Pro-life industry, no response. So Joel Berry is I believe, the managing editor at the Babylon Bee, is his official title, and he's sometimes a little blue-pilled, like very blue-pilled on immigration, I would say. So, looking at this tweet, Joel Berry, let me zoom in some more. So, are you saying that women who get an abortion is the exact same kind of killer as the guy here? And Smash Bales, just posted a murder headline. That's really all you need to know about that. Because that assertion would be so anti-human and detached from reality, it would border on psychotic. So that's Joel Berry saying that. And Smash Bales holding the line says, yes, they're both killers, and it is objectively more evil for a mother to murder her own child than for someone to kill a stranger. You agree with that?
I mean, there is a second level of depravity that goes there. Like, no one would say that a parent or a child that kills their parent, that's like a, fratricide or brother killing brother. Yeah, there's certainly
Regicide,
yeah.
fratricide,
Well, there's certainly a more,
patricide.
I
I don't know
guess,
what killing children is called, or killing
infanticide.
your children is called. Infanticide is the general term for it, though, which we're going to talk about the history of infanticide.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot more agency, like in moral, I guess, depravity or total depravity. You're going deeper into that to kill someone of your own blood.
Yeah, and there's something about kinslaying that is, seen as wrong. Catholics were very much against it. So yes, they're both killers, and killing them, your own children is actually even more evil. And I think that's true. There's something even more unnatural about that, because it's natural for a mother to love her own child. That is completely natural, but this does flip that on its table. Joe Barry responds saying, so you think the legal system should be harsher towards an 18-year-old who buys Plan B after a one-night stand than a guy who killed strangers? How does this look in reality to you? Lethal injection for the 18-year-old, the gallows, what? Is it murder or not? Is the response that Smash Bales gives. And Joel Berry says, I'll only answer your question when you answer mine. Gallows, lethal injection. Bring your ideas to the real world and test them. Let's go. So let's actually bring these ideas to the real world, because they've been brought to the real world for centuries. So let's talk about
Let me just say, I saw this case, and I forget what it's, some like general AP style news organization, but it was like in New Mexico. Literally, a teenage girl, gives birth in a hospital and suffocates the baby in a trash can in that hospital. And she was lying throughout the entire visit of whether she was pregnant. And of course, the doctors figure out she's pregnant because they run a blood test. But yeah, she literally lies through her teeth the entire time and strangles and suffocates a child in a trash can after giving birth in a hospital, like without anyone in a hospital bathroom. So, and the idea that she shouldn't be punished for that, which is functionally an abortion.
Functionally, yes. And historically, that's always what it's been. So I see Formosan Black Bear has a comment about, if I can find it. It's not showing up on my chat overlay, but it's showing up on the YouTube feed that I see. Some about, to pass your child through the fire and what that looks like and what that functionally means is, yes, that is what abortion functionally was in the Old Testament. You'll see that certain kings pass their child through the fire. That means they sacrificed their own children. I believe Ahab was one of those kings. I could be wrong, but I'm just trying to name names here. I think Ahab was one of them. I also think Ahab was kind of gay too, because there's a lot of eunuchs around, and and I believe there's also male prostitutes and stuff like that during his day. So not a good guy. So Joe Barry calls punishing killing mothers a hypothetical that's never been tested in the real world. The problem is, throughout Christendom, this isn't true. Although there were centuries where the Catholic Church did not take infanticide seriously, they rectified this with the Council of Florence in 1439.
I mean, was there a policy before? I'm just wondering. Or was it
I think
just
it was treated more as a sin issue and not a crime issue. However, it's also important to note that with European history, this is an era of rising crown authority, to use a video game term. So, the rising crown authority of European powers led to some of what we're about to talk about, which is the legal code for infanticide being added to a national legal code,
all right? So
whereas
more,
before it might have been more regional or feudal, so to
so more
speak.
political stabilization and more, I guess, formal legal codes brought about stronger restrictions.
I think that's one of the reasons why we see the laws on the books happen after 1439. But in 1439, this is a somewhat ecumenical council. Like it does attempt to bridge the divide between Catholics and Eastern Orthodox. So it's important to recognize that in terms of this council. Some good came out of this council, some bad. Like the good being that this council focused more on, actually, the bad being that this council focused more on the purgatory thing, I think a lot of that doctrine came out of this council, but this council did have it followed through on a logical conclusion that unbaptized babies go to hell, and therefore infanticide is a high crime. Is basically the logic that came out of this meeting.
So not the best explanation, but
Well, I would say that the children of unbelievers who are prematurely dead, I don't think there's a strong biblical case that God rescues those children. I can't prove it 100% false. I can't prove it 100% true. I just don't think the case is very strong. I think the case is strong for believers. And I think if someone has an abortion, during their days of degeneracy, comes to Christ, I think there's hope that they could see the child that they murdered in heaven. So those are my views, and you see that with the story of David and Bathsheba.
and that's generally a reformer's argument. So I mean, I was,
Other people go with the age of accountability, which I don't think is in the Bible.
but I mean, if you're looking at what like Calvin says, yes, he would say that the children unto believers have that kind of grace attached to it, as far as like the infants. So that is in line with a lot of the, I guess, Protestant Reformation and the Reformed theologians.
So 1439, Council of Florence kind of changed the church's attitude on this. And it does trickle down to the European powers as their crown authority is rising. They pass national codes on these things. This one's a pretty interesting one. The Constitutio Criminales Carolina, 1532. It's an effort of Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. Not a very friendly king towards or emperor towards Protestants, if we're being honest. But nonetheless, he does place limitations on medieval torture methods requiring due process. So you might think of this as a very messed up law in terms of you're allowing torture and stuff like that, but this placed limitations on medieval torture. So this law isn't exactly completely unjust. It is outside of the current time. So one such crime mentioned in this code was infanticide. So when a girl, this is like section 35, I guess, when a girl, purportedly a maiden, comes under suspicion of having secretly had and killed a child, it shall be especially inquired whether she was seen with a large and unusual body, and further whether the body then became smaller and she was then pale and weak. When such and similar is discovered, and where a girl is a person of whom such a suspected crime could be believed, then she shall be inspected by knowledgeable women in a enclosed space, so far as the facilities further inquiry. So far that facilitates further inquiry. And if the suspicion is there confirmed, and nonetheless she will not confess the dead, she may be examined under torture. So that's the part one. And then the part two of that is when however the baby was killed only in such a short time before that the milk in the breast of the mother has not yet gone away, then she may be milked in her breast. And when mother's milk is found in the breast, there is, in consequence, a strong presumption for the use of examination under torture. Since, however, some physicians say that for several natural reasons, a woman who has not borne a child may have milk in the breast, when therefore a girl exculpates herself in this way, she shall be further investigated by the midwife or other. So this actually requires some sort of gynecological checkup before you do the medieval torture, as opposed to just going straight there. Your thoughts on medieval law so far?
I mean, obviously, we like to look down on the medievals, but yeah, obviously, they kind of knew a thing or two about medicine, at least in the regards to pregnancy.
So, moreover, we got some English tradition. Now, obviously, our legal tradition does not allow torture to acquire a confession. Needless to say. So, but this demonstrates that the Holy Roman Empire viewed infanticide as a capital crime. So, now we have the English tradition that includes the Infanticide Act of 1624. So we're just after the Puritans, and we're slightly before the English Civil War. Interesting time period for English people. And here's the quote from the act: "An act to prevent the destroying and murdering of bastard children. Statutes of the realm. Whereas many lewd women that have been delivered of bastard children to avoid their shame and to escape punishment do secretly bury or conceal the death of their children, and after, if the child be found dead, the said woman do allege that the said child was born dead, whereas it falleth out sometimes, although hardly it is to be proved, that said child or children were murdered by the said woman, their lewd mothers, or by their assent or procurement." And it goes on to say that if any woman be delivered of any issue of her body, male or female, which being born alive should by the laws of this realm be a bastard, and that she endeavor privately, either by drowning or secret burying thereof, or in any way, either by herself or the procuring of others, so to conceal the death thereof, as that it may not come to light, whether it were born alive or not, but be concealed, in every such case, the said mother so offending shall suffer death, ... except such mother can make proof by one witness, at the least, that the child whose death was by her so intended to be concealed was born dead. Is there anything unjust about that law?
I mean, the standard of one witness to defend innocence.
I
There's
like the
even a huge case of reasonable doubt there.
I like the preamble, which talks about lewd women, and it talks about this woman's reputation. So it kind of talks about, hey, these are sluts.
Well, I mean,
Which you don't see, evangelicals don't, or a lot of the pro-life industry doesn't want to acknowledge promiscuity.
I mean, let's just be honest. The people that are the customers or the people that are customers for abortion are generally doing it out of wedlock.
Right. And there are disturbing a number of people who are married and nonetheless go with abortion. So it's a disturbing trend, obviously, which I think you're going to see more of married people getting it. I mean, didn't Abigail Johnson, I'm thinking of from the Unplanned movie and all that, didn't she get an abortion while she was married?
I don't know. I don't know her story all that well.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but that was my impression. So I thought that that's a pretty just law. Now, Joe Barry apparently wouldn't think so, but he's part of Conservative Inc., I guess. So both of these instances are nationalized laws regarding infanticide. It was not until the 19th century that these laws were scaled back, and infanticide was viewed as a lesser crime as opposed to a capital crime. According to one study in the and that's from the National Institutes of Health, is where I got that. In the 17th century, the rate of execution of women for this crime was 1 per 100,000 inhabitants. So, to answer Joel Berry's objection, this has been tried in the real world. So, then he goes full Reddit and he says, yes, abortion is murder. I also think that the abolition slash hashtag not a victim crowd is home to some of the most cruel and graceless people on the planet who've deluded themselves into thinking that they're compassionate just because they oppose baby murder, which is the lowest possible bar. He goes on to say in this conversation in thread, OT law demanded stoning of rebellious teens. If you're going to claim that we should adopt OT law to be consistent and adapt it all, equal weights and measures, John, and he's talking to a person named John, not John Harris, by the way. This is a Reddit tier argument. He might as well be arguing about mixing fabrics and eating shellfish because that's how uncomfortable he is with the prescription of the Bible and the historic precedent for following it in these instances. And those who want to obfuscate the sin of baby killing will ultimately do so in opposition to God's word and with no good retort. That's kind of how I end the article.
I like how Ted Cruz made the exact same thing in regards to Uganda.
He did, didn't he?
He went to the same exact passage.
Yeah, that's a disturbing trend that you see in conservative ink.
Is Joel Berry claimed to be a Christian or no?
Joel Berry's yes, he does claim to be a Christian. He's actually been pretty based lately, and then he just completely walked it back with that. And then didn't Joel Berry fire someone in a tweet? I want to say maybe, but I would say that Seth Dillon might be doing the firing war. And one of the people behind Babylon Bee sold their share. I thought that's a pretty interesting development on that front. So now we're going to talk about, unless you have anything else to say about Joel Berry. I kind of said my piece with the article.
I mean, again, if you want to win on abortion, you got to highlight the fact that 40% of these women are repeat customers. And just make the people that get it disgusting. Don't make the procedures disgusting because they are. But, you can't go, I mean, you probably can't, I guess, shame people with disgusting images into submission, or at least it's not going to work long term, or it's not working currently. So you got to actually go after the people that get the abortions, which would be saying that, hey, 40% of these people are repeat customers. It's not a tragic incident. It's not a mistake. It's a lifestyle. And that's how I think you need to switch your branding.
So let's move on to Glenn Beck. Now, Glenn Beck is the original inspiration for this live stream. And then just everything happened with the whole Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens thing. So I want to start out with this because it does tie into the Candace Owens thing.
I mean, this happened first, so chronological order.
Yeah, and then I have another clip from Glenn Beck where I just think he's lying to his base. So here's the first clip. No, it's not playing right.
Was born. But there is something about the state of Israel that connects deeply to me. And standing up this time, as opposed to every other time there has been a pogrom or a Holocaust, 19 Holocausts. All of the pogroms where they would come in and just clean a town out of all the Jews. To have the privilege to stand with the Jew is a tremendous honor, spiritually.
Can I just say I thought it was pronounced pogroms? Just saying. This clip comes from Right Wing Watch, apparently, because that was the fastest way I could find it on YouTube. But which is odd because I always kind of like associated any Holocaust that happened under the Soviet Union to be, Bolshevik led, but who's actually doing these? Is it the Soviets?
I mean, I don't know what he's referring to as far as the other ones, because I know about the Armenian, obviously Holodomor happened, but I guess I'm assuming he's not counting that.
I mean, maybe it happened more broadly Eastern Europe and
I
not just
mean,
the Soviet Union.
pogroms, I think they claim there's 119 of those.
Really? That high? He,
Well,
he claimed like 16 or something.
I thought he said 19, but I wasn't sure if there's a one in front of that. But
I mean, I think this is ironic considering he's a Mormon and, there's a certain way, pejorative for Mormon called mountain Jews. So,
So I want to read a letter that I wrote that I am sending to the state of Israel. To Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the honorable officials at the state of Israel. I write this to you in a time of profound significance, a moment where history echoes its most harrowing and yet most resilient notes. The present-day world has eerily come to resemble the troubling shadows of the 1930s and 40s, where our Jewish brothers and sisters once again bore the weight of unprecedented persecution. The drums of war beat again, and the haunting chants of prejudice against the Jewish people have once more risen from hushed murmurs to overt threats. In this moment, I have chosen to ask you for citizenship in the state of Israel.
your thoughts on that?
I mean, the term cuckold gets thrown out a lot these days.
I was trying to find some mood music for this cringe, but
and this is actually like why would he even like Netanyahu would probably laugh at this. It's like, wow, I don't have to even pay this guy. Like, he's doing everything I want for free. Now Lauren Chen made the comment that she's been offered twice free all expense paid trips to Israel.
by who?
Well, presumably the state actors of sorts, I'm sure. But yeah,
Really?
but yeah, she claimed in a live stream today that she's been offered twice all expense paid trip to Israel. So the notion that they give that there's, I guess, I don't know if it's Mossad or like a tourism agency, because Israel does have like a state tourism and antiquities agency, whether that will pay influencers like to basically vacation there. And
Who was that NBA player that was denying the moon landing, and then NASA's like, "Hey, we're gonna offer you a tour of our facilities," and it's like, can I start denying the moon and landing and
is that
get some
not
of that?
Kyrie?
Was it Kyrie?
It sounds like it would be him.
Yeah, I think it was. That sounds like it would be him as well, but or Steph Curry or something like that. But that was a thing. It's like, is that what Israel's doing here? It's like, hey, you're getting a little too right wing. We're going to offer you an all expenses paid trip to Israel, and you just got to stay for our timeshare presentation, right?
I mean, apparently,
that
that's what I learned today. Apparently, that's a thing.
That's conservative ink for you, and their lies.
That you can buy a lot of people with some, nice vacation.
Yeah, and get them to buy a Zionist timeshare.
I immediately thought of Epstein as soon as I said it.
Yeah, if you pizza when you should French fry, you're not going to have a fun time, right? If you crucifix when you should Star of David, you're not going to have a fun time. So that seems to be the lesson over there. That's wild. So I got another clip for you. And this clip is just, I think, again, this is not relevant to the Israel discussion per se. I just think this is an instance where Glenn Beck's just kind of shamelessly lying to his base.
This change.
Well, I was really happy to see the New York Times point out that if he goes to jail, he loses all 5 of those swing states then that he otherwise would win. So if he's convicted and goes to jail, he won't win those swing states. And they were really, really great at pointing that out.
It really wasn't even that strong. It was only like, 6% of people switch their votes if he's in jail?
Yeah.
Like,
it didn't make that much difference.
No.
Yeah, if he's in jail,
now,
literally.
That would be enough to cost him the election in these polls. At least, again, it's just a poll. But still, it would be enough However, it
I'm
was
not
amazing
sure
that that's a pretty low number.
Yeah, and I'm not
It is.
sure that that's true.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure either.
I'm not sure that that's true.
The only way it probably would be true is if he were kept off the ballot in those states as a result of being in prison.
The only way, and I think you would go to the Supreme Court on this, the only way that would happen is if he were convicted in the January 6th stuff. Insurrection.
You think that one? Because I can't imagine people are going to be like, well, he took too many documents from his office and he put them in a bathroom, therefore he shouldn't be president. I don't think that's real. I don't think the American people care that much about that type of thing. January 6th thing, I think they do.
Your thoughts on that? Do you think January 6th is the magic thing that if Trump is convicted would hurt him a lot more than say the other cases against him?
I would say yes. I mean, again,
do you think that's the only one that would hurt him?
Probably not. I mean, the more errors you take, the more damage you're taking. So the problem, I'm more looking at that 6%. It's just I'm not sure whether I believe it in favor of Trump or just not in general. Because I mean, he obviously, Trump is Trump. So the question of whether he would lose 6% of his voters because they somehow haven't made a calculation that they're going to vote for him if he's in prison or not. I don't know. But I mean, Conservative Inc. ran with the story that 5% of voters would have switched from Biden to Trump had they known about Hunter Biden, which again, I don't necessarily believe that either.
I don't believe that because if you didn't know about that, you were willfully ignorant. You chose to be that ignorant that you didn't know about that story.
So, I mean, I don't necessarily judge what people say they would do in a poll.
We got a good question here. Question, is the covenant continual persecution of Jews in history due to the Mosaic covenant, or is it part of God's wrath on them for the continual rejection of Christ, or is it nothing at all? I kind of think it's more closer to the latter because when you have different groups in a multicultural society, and this is where we could argue that multiculturalism doesn't work. So you have one group that's, say, Christian and another group that's, say, not Christian. So that not Christian group is going to push for a secular society because that's in their group interest. But the group that is Christian is going to rebuff at that, and that leads to a lot of tension. Now, we could flip the tables and imagine it's Muslim, imagine it's...
I mean, if you go back to Spain, the reason Spain kicked out the Jews was because they were pretty much in line with the Muslims. So it's the Muslims got kicked out, which, no one necessarily condemns. Maybe the woke will condemn that now, but yeah, their friends also got kicked out too. So, I mean, you got kicked out because you were part of management.
Now, I think my favorite one is it was some Jewish news organization like Haaretz or like Jerusalem Post or whatever, was on this day in, was it 990 or something like that, the Jews were expelled from London for shaving coins. So if you ever wondered, and I guess they framed that as a persecution thing. And so if you ever wonder why quarters have anything above a dime or higher has ridges on it, it's because of coin shaving. And apparently that was a thing that was being done by a certain demographic in European history. I just think that story is wild, and that the fact that a Jewish publication ran that story, and I guess for the purposes of demonstrating a victim narrative, that doesn't jive well at all. But in terms of the Holocaust, the ultimate victim narrative, you don't have the Holocaust if the Bolsheviks didn't rise up and massacre the Romanov family.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think you have the Holocaust. You don't have.
I don't even think Hitler would be anti-Semitic if that didn't happen. Because I remember watching I think it was a BBC documentary called the Hitler Chronicles that was briefly on Amazon for a time, but all primary sources, all footage from that day, and that was one of the takeaways I had was that there's no primary source evidence that he was anti-Semitic prior to his incarceration.
Really?
Yeah, like through World War I and everything. I think he even got like a Medal of Accommodation in World War I, like the Iron Cross that I think that he's always seen photographed in. I think he got that because of a Jewish officer.
Really?
But
And then they say that
and then
there was
they
a family member in
kind
his lineage that was Jewish.
and then
I've
they
heard
kind
that
of
as
try to
well.
drive the art school narrative, which I don't think is true at all.
He's a better artist than what we have now. That's unfortunate reality because modern art sucks. But I don't think you have the Holocaust without the Bolsheviks. I just don't. So that would be my straight line connection. And the Bolsheviks, it's them and the Maoists that killed the most. So that would be my answer to that. And in America, we don't really have a history of persecuting Jews unless you're with
Leo Frank.
ADL Leo Frank, right, of the ADL, who claims that he was lynched, and I don't even think he was like unjustly lynched because the governor commuted his sentence despite a lack of evidence, and then the people broke him out and carried out the execution that he was originally sentenced to. So I don't think that was wholly unjust. Yeah. Yellowmouth says, "But is he better than AI? But is he better than AI art? So can Hitler do AI art? That is the question."
He'll do better fingers. I
AI art, like, can someone tell me what to use? I want to use Gab's AI, but it's just frankly not as good. Gab's AI art is
just
frankly good.
where the Pixar AI coming from?
You can just type in Pixar style and the AI knows. So that's how you do that. So moving on in the Glenn Beck clip. That was a good question, by the way.
I know maybe, we obviously have looked into this and talk about it all the time. You're talking about some moderate voter, though, in a swing state. I think that would have an effect if he was convicted over it. It would be interesting to see. I don't think it would be positive. I think it would be hard to run a campaign from prison. And look, we all know this is what they want.
It has been done before.
Oh, it has been done before, but not successfully.
No,
not
but it was a
successfully.
communist.
It was a communist.
Yeah,
yes,
so.
multiple communists actually.
Yeah.
Peace and Freedom Party has run,
Yes.
candidates from prison multiple times.
Right.
But generally speaking, very difficult to do. Suboptimal would be one way. And like when we talk about this, we always talk about the actual merits of these cases. Does that make any difference at all? The merits of the cases have nothing to do with this story.
No.
The story is about whether these people are going to throw him in prison, whether the merits are there or not.
Correct.
And that's what you have to worry about if you're Donald Trump or the Republican Party. It's going to be hard. That's going to be a difficult task to achieve.
So this part I think is true. I think they're being honest here. The Democrats are going to throw Trump in prison regardless of reasonable doubt. Anyone really arguing that point other than Donald Trump's lawyers?
I mean, one thing to even consider is that let's say he's convicted in April. November is a long way from April. So I mean, there is a certain
America short-term memory loss.
yeah.
Okay.
I think that certainly works in Trump's favor.
Be elected from prison. And I don't know if
But
they
I
can
will
do it.
tell you,
but it's
I
not
think-
impossible.
I mean, I've seen conversations. I can't remember who did a piece on this, but with the African American community, and it might actually help him in the African American community, not because they want somebody who's a felon in. They see injustice, and all of the people they think, many people have been used and abused by the system and thrown into prison.
It's sort of they connect with the oppression.
They connect with the oppression, and they look at that and go, "Oh my gosh, he's now one of us."
And look, Donald
Trump, honorary black man.
Does he get? Can he say the word?
He'll be the most black president ever if he goes to jail.
I still think Bill Clinton gets that honor.
He ain't going to prison. Who's the last billionaire to go to prison? Now, I don't know about jail time, but I guess it's possible to be convicted of a felony and not go to jail. I mean, the biggest question is, does he get an N-word pass with a prison sentence? That is the question we all want to know. Because Glenn Beck, you heard it here, Trump becomes an honorary black man by becoming a convicted felon. Sam Bankman-Fried, although isn't he no longer a billionaire because of the whole Bitcoin pop? I don't know if he lost billionaire status in that, but I know a lot of super millionaires that went to prison, but I don't know if I can name a billionaire.
No, Epstein.
Bernie Madoff. Oh, Epstein didn't last in prison. He was in a holding cell. He got the cush deals of all time in 2007, I want to say, or was it 2008? And I think one of the dudes that was behind that deal was someone that Trump appointed somewhere. But I believe Trump also had his lawyers. But in Trump's defense, he got for his impeachment trials, Trump brought out the dream team of lawyers. That included Ken Starr and Alan Dershowitz. So Trump brought out the dream team for his impeachment trial. And then for his election trials, he brought out the short bus. So, be that what it may. But yes, Trump, honorary black man, according to Glenn Beck, if convicted of a felony.
Well, Trump could pull off these magic tricks that no one else could do. I mean, like he can be a multi-billionaire in a giant skyscraper and not only convince people he's a man of the people, but also that he's oppressed. Like he's just able to do it.
But
and
actually, I mean, he has his own plane, but he eats McDonald's.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
I think it works for him.
He's a strange kind of combination
hybrid
of everything.
Yeah,
he is.
It's fascinating to see. I mean, he really can. He is a magician when it comes to politics, and that's the thing when you look at the movement behind him long term. There have been very few people who are able to pull that off other than him. Right? Like a lot of these candidates that he puts up for these and he praises don't do that well because they don't have whatever he has. Right? Donald Trump has something somewhat unique. This is not breaking news. Guy's a pretty unique dude, and he's able to pull things off that other politicians or candidates cannot. He's been the only one who's really been able to do it. I mean, there's some examples of people who have similar viewpoints as him that have done okay, but really, there's something magical in the recipe there that he has that no one else has. And he will remind you of that if you ask him.
All right. I want to pause right there because I think that's fake news as well. I don't think that Trump's endorsement necessarily helps people in the general election. If anything, I think it actually hurts them a little bit.
I might say it doesn't, but I mean, first thing is first is, Trump has money. A lot of these people he backs don't. I mean, like in Nevada, it kind of seems like Alex Laxalt is clearly, I mean, he was endorsed by Trump and DeSantis, and it seems like he's clearly in the DeSantis camp going into 24. But I mean, he was $15 million going up against $50 million and lost. So, I mean, let's start with the money conversation.
But
question the Trump.
What, Laxalt?
Yes.
Yes, but he didn't get the rural turnout.
No,
and we talked last time in our election live stream. We talked about how the rural voters in Pennsylvania didn't show up on game day, and that seems to be the big problem. Is a lot of the MAGA voters are not showing up for off-year elections.
But I mean, money helps to probably get that to improve.
But the Republicans have always been at a financial disadvantage as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
Even in 2014, when Republicans had massive sweeping victories, we're still being outspent. Obama knew how to fundraise. He outspent McCain. He outspent Romney. For Madison Blackberry, you must take the Ukrainian money. Basically, they got that Ukrainian money, right? At least after 2014, they do.
But I do think there's a huge...
When they deposed the, democracy in Ukraine was bad prior to, was it March or February 2014?
But I do think there's a huge credibility gap. That, a lot of those rural voters believe Trump is credible. They take him at his word. They don't necessarily have that from a lot of these other candidates.
So did Lombardo get endorsed by Trump?
Yes, Lombardo was a Trump endorsement.
So he was one of the Trump endorsements that actually succeeded. Now, wasn't he a former sheriff or something like that? So
Yes.
he came from Clark County, so he had a lot of street cred in Clark County, which allowed him to win the entirety of the state. And with that said, you look at the candidates that weren't really endorsed by Trump in 2022 and even 2021. You look at Glenn Youngkin, not really, or Trump was kept out of the race in Virginia, and Glenn Youngkin won. Trump attacked Ron DeSantis before he got reelected in 2022, and Ron DeSantis did really, really well in 2022, despite the fact that Ron DeSantis didn't have a reputation for being overperformative in elections in general. But that was like his seal the deal. I overperformed expectations. And then you got Brian Kemp, who Trump tried to oppose in a gubernatorial primary, who not only crushed that gubernatorial primary, but also crushed Stacey Abrams in that rematch.
No, I mean
Am I missing any other examples here?
I mean, this is why I don't necessarily buy whether 6% of people change their vote. I mean, he might just not even have that 6% of people.
And the most,
he's
like,
you're not losing voters you don't even have.
I mean, Carrie Lake tried to be as Trump gets and lost. And to be honest, I think she alienated the McCain base too much, which I get it. You hate those people. Those people suck, but you need their votes, and you need to acknowledge that you need their votes. And you just can't, take a dump on them. You did that in the primary. You don't do that campaigning for the general election. You don't do that. It's just a stupid strategy, and it could have hurt Republicans all down ballot in Arizona as well. In terms of what's his face, who's the American Caesar guy that the Senate candidate, Blake Masters, who I believe is running for Congress in the Arizona 8th. So you're going to see some of that. So Greg Shirk says he'll be the next president. Know why ham is $10 a pound? Well, I don't think Trump can make that case because
come on.
I don't think Trump can make that case.
Certain donors don't eat pork. Come on.
Okay.
Muslims is
obviously the Muslims. He won't get the Muslim. You won't convince the Muslim vote by talking about ham being $10 a pound. But I don't think that'll be the case, because I think if you do an exit poll, do Americans trust Republicans with the economy more than Democrats? Yes. But who will the American people blame for the current economic conditions? Donald Trump or Joe Biden? What is the answer going to come down to? That will make, if they do an exit poll on that, and the answer is Joe Biden, it's game over for Trump. And I think there's a high percentage chance that the answer to that question will be Joe Biden. Will be Donald Trump. That more Americans will blame Donald Trump for the current economy and the 2020 lockdowns that we're still facing the repercussions of than Joe Biden. And, when you talk about inflation, you got to remember Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve, was appointed by Donald Trump. And then Joe Biden exacerbated the problem. So I don't know who. The question is how far back are Americans going to carry their economic memory? If Trump can convince them to forget about 2020, then maybe. And same rise that says RFK will be president, not a chance. No chance. And the question is, who does RFK hurt if he gets on the ballot in enough states? Does he hurt the Republican ticket or the Democrat ticket? I don't think he hurts the Democrat ticket at all or enough. He could hurt the Republican ticket more, or he hurts the third party vote that's kind of always there. So it's definitely Biden. He's been president for 3 years. I think there's a strong percentage chance that enough Americans will blame Trump on game day that wouldn't necessarily, which would be taken off the table if a generic Republican were on the ballot. That's my theory. I could be wrong on that. I haven't seen a poll on this.
In that regard, then that's where more voters, Republicans, are hurt more from an RFK on the ballot would be those people that blame Trump for the lockdowns and the COVID and all that. But I don't think that base of voters is large in terms of the people in the center.
I don't see I don't see
Because
anyone who's pro-life going for RFK. The pro-life vote is not going to switch from Trump to RFK if
I
Trump
mean,
is the nominee, which
I
I'm
think
not
there's
convinced.
enough COVID angst that's where it would go if it goes anywhere.
You think it goes to RFK?
Yeah, that's the argument that RFK hurts Trump more than Biden.
See, I don't know if I'm not convinced RFK can actually be an inspiring candidate. He's just been an astroturfed conservative media candidate because conservative media has covered him more than any Democrat media.
I mean, the runway is.
As soon as it's the general election time, there's going to be zero coverage of him. My thought, my theory on that.
I mean,
He's being entertained for a time, but that time is going to end.
he's got a runway, so we'll know we'll know maybe 6 months from now how the RFK campaign is, even whether that's even still breathing.
All right. So we're gonna finish up this clip. I think he has another thing about 20% of the black vote.
Imagine what's going to happen if he is removed from the ballots in a lot of these states. I mean, the chaos, the rioting.
It would be
That'd be
civil
ugly.
war.
Ugly.
It would be civil war. You cannot do that. The Democrats are doing everything they can to thwart the election process.
And they'd love to see chaos like that.
Oh yeah, they'd
would love it.
Oh yeah,
That might
absolutely.
be the final straw.
Right.
Do you think, even if he gets convicted and if he's put in prison of some sort, I think that line makes the country unrecognizable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how people would react to that.
It's Banana Republic stuff.
It really is, and it would be hard to argue anything other than that.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting a guy who's leading to be president in prison so that he can't be president. I mean, that is like legitimately what happens in Venezuela.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this is what they impeached him over. The Democrat said he was going to a foreign entity, Ukraine, and trying to get dirt on his opponent to be able to make sure he went to jail. That's exactly what Biden is doing.
Yeah, it really is remarkable.
Incredible.
I don't know. I mean, it would be one thing if they did this in the immediate aftermath, right? Like if right after January 6th happened, like they tried the quick, sort of express impeachment, if you will, which was really, really a joke. But if they had done this and tried to go after him and somehow proven that he did something wrong or whatever, like it may have been more acceptable to people to wait until he's running and winning and then be like, oh, by the way, we've got a bunch of charges from like 12 different states. Everything he's ever done is wrong. We all found out today. It's so transparent that people have to be able to see through that, I think. But I don't know. I get surprised with the American people often.
So from Texas, the Democrat from Texas, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, is worried that voters' feelings will result in a vote for Trump.
Oh, no. Not feelings.
Not feelings.
Oh, no.
Okay. She's worried about the feelings and not the facts.
Well,
now,
you know why she's worried about the feelings, though, is because all black people don't know how they're actually doing. They don't. Those are the facts they don't understand.
They don't understand.
They don't understand two things: that they're doing way better than they think they are. The other thing is they just don't understand our system. They're too stupid. Yeah, that's
really
that's
what
based
she
on
said.
the color of their skin. Okay.
Yes.
Wow, that is interesting.
Yes.
Well, she said also that they feel as though they're not doing well.
Right.
No.
But they are. She's got to tell them, yes, you are.
Yeah, because it's the facts that, yes, you are. Isn't that incredible?
It's unbelievable.
I mean, just...
Have they said anything in the last minute?
They've done a lot of talking. Again, yes, obviously Biden needs to shore up his black support, but you're more likely to see black people just not show up than show up for Trump.
Here's my theory. Biden is the only candidate that's getting the black vote out for the Democrats. That's my theory. I don't think Kamala Harris could do it. I don't think Gavin Newsom's proven that he can do it. I
Well, I
don't think
mean,
Andrew Cuomo could do it.
Biden won the nomination because he got the black vote.
John Kerry failed to do it, perhaps. I haven't done a breakdown on the 2004 election, but Bush won the popular vote then, so that says something. So Obama could do it. John Kerry couldn't do it.
But that is the current Democrat messaging from Biden, is that, you know, you're trying to make it look like, hey, I've improved things for black communities, which obviously isn't really true, but it is what it is. So it's kind of like they're taking the very slow, meandering way of just like, I mean, Whitlock did a breakdown on this exact same issue because they're advertising on ESPN. So he kind of did a better breakdown over at Blaze than Clint Beck is doing. I mean, and again, he can't do worse with black women than he did in 2020. Let's just put that on the table. Like, you would have to like just be the most vehement, like dropping racial slurs to do worse with black women. I don't think you'd have to try.
And whatever, yeah, and basically whatever he makes up with black men is already offset, and black women vote in higher proportion than black men. I think is probably.
I think
also
you got like
a fair
5%. I
assumption.
mean, how do you do worse than 5%?
I don't know what demographic votes 95%, other than Washington, D.C. Like, that might be the only demographic that, you know, the D.C. population votes like 94% Democrat, which means Trump's screwed in that jury pool, by the way. Let's see. We do have some upgrade ads. So Big Red Snake says 2004 without the war on terror, which Kerry was against. Bush did the wolf ad, which was a throwback to Reagan's bear ad. Race mattered much less then. I also want to say thank you, Greg, for the super chat. Much appreciated. As we go into a lot of the expenses of the Evangelical Dark Web involved a book that's coming out. That'll be Winning Not Winsome. So right now, the process of that book is I'm trying to get endorsements for the book from people with bigger platforms than myself, some names that you might recognize. So that's what's going on there. So thank you very much. So with that said, I just don't see that happening, because here's the thing about elections. Like, if you get one demographic, it could come at the expense of another demographic. If Trump being a felon makes him an honorary black man, as Glenn Beck so uneloquently put it, then you're going to have a bunch of suburban white women that are concerned about the rising crime that they voted for, and not want a convicted felon in the White House. You're going to get a bunch of people that say he's a convicted felon, I can't vote for that. And you're going to have basically Never Trump on steroids in the suburban communities that particularly don't like to get their hands dirty. If mean tweets was bad enough in 2020, what is technical felony going to do?
I mean, the problem, I mean, we're literally in this situation because people acted on feelings rather than facts. And that's why they chose senile old man over mean tweets.
So will the feeling of he's oppressed just like me work?
Well, we'll find out in DC when he's on trial.
We will find out. I don't think it'll work out in DC. I think
Maybe
he gets
he'll
off
win.
in Florida. I've said
Maybe
that in the
he'll
past.
win District of Columbia for the first time in history.
Maybe. Because I don't know if any Republicans ever won that. If
No,
Nixon
not
and Reagan
Reagan.
didn't do it. Unless Nixon did, but maybe it wasn't a thing in Nixon's day. So, yeah, so now we got some other clips to move on to. I'm going to get that set up. So I guess now we're going to transition to the Ben Shapiro Candace Owens thing. So Candace Owens, what to think about her? What are your thoughts on Candace Owens? I have a lot of thoughts on her.
I mean,
But
she's obvious, like she's a mixed bag, because I actually do think she has some genuine convictions. Like, I do think she's genuinely anti-vax.
okay.
So that would be one example. I do think, you know, she is a little bit of a noticer over at Daily Wire. And again, I think part of that comes from, I mean, obviously she was, you know, black Marxist back in the day. And so And obviously, she's probably in touch with her inner black woman. So, I mean, a lot of those antics, and obviously, like blacks and Jews are a little bit at tensions right now. And I think
I mean, kind
I
of
think that's
always
an
been.
actual, yeah. But I think that's actually, like, I think what she's doing on the whole, um, I guess, tacitly put the JQ. I think that's actually real. Like, I don't think she's grifting.
Yeah, I don't think that's grifting at all. I
I
mean, face
mean,
it, Whoopi Goldberg, who you might know best as Gangnam from Star Trek. I mean, she changed her name to Whoopi Goldberg to appear more Jewish and get more roles. And can you honestly say that that failed?
we know her name.
I know she's, in Star Trek. So let me pull up the Candace Owens tweet because I have like all the other tweets on here, but except that one or
I
the
mean,
relevant
do
ones.
I necessarily believe she's a Christian? I don't know.
We'll get to that.
I lean no just because of the Dave Rubin stuff.
We'll get to that in a second. So I got the tab ready. So this is the exchange heard around the world, and right here, Candace Owens. So she tweets out, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and you shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and serve and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." Uh, and then Ben Shapiro tweets out, "Candace, if you were, sorry, maybe I should do my impression, which my wife says I shouldn't do, but she's not watching right now. Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit."
It
Was
could
that
be
good?
worse.
Okay. Was that good? Okay. Okay. So Candace says, "You have been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now. And we all have had to sit back and allow it, and all have tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotion. But you cross a certain line when you come for scripture and read yourself into it. I will not tolerate it."
I mean, there is a saying, and I'm pretty sure the Bible says this. Scripture does not, God's word does not come back null.
I
Um,
know. And I was struggling with that passage when Mike Pence quotes scripture on the debate stage. I
yeah,
really struggle with that passage during those times.
but this one didn't come back void. Someone responded to it.
So,
Even if you put it out in the most disingenuous fashion, someone responded to it. There's the old saying, the dog that yelps is the one you hit.
so Berean Babe says that Candace was subtweeting Ben after she misrepresented the facts of the IDF. So obviously, Candace is somewhat of a truther when it comes to the whole Palestinian Israeli war. I said at the beginning, and I think Candace Owens and Lauren Chen and Elijah Schaefer, just to name some names, kind of fall in this category of they are squeamish about what it takes to win a war. Now, I'm not going to pretend that the Israelis care about civilian casualties because I honestly don't think they do. Uh, and obviously, we know Hamas is just out to kill everybody and apparently do even worse. I mean, and I guess according to their rules, because all Israelis have to serve in the military, there really isn't a civilian in the Israeli conflict to them, but that doesn't excuse the rape and the worse that they do. Doesn't excuse that. It doesn't justify that at all. And I guess Candace Owens, she kind of runs to any sort of contrarian news on that subject, and that has put these two at odds for weeks. And I think they've been at odds for a long time, specifically with the Kanye stuff. So this civil war at the Daily Wire has been brewing for a while. So, do you think this was unprofessional of Ben Shapiro to goad someone into quitting?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly proves his point. I mean, again, you want to do the whole, we have professionalism. We respectfully disagree. We're allowed to respectfully disagree with each other, but I think they should do that. Like, I'm trying to think if there's an example at like the Blaze of this, but again, he, I mean, you could have just not responded because again, even if it's subtweeting Ben Shapiro in particular, again, the dog that yelps is the one you hit, and you're letting her know that the scripture about money impacted him. So you're playing into a stereotype, first of all.
Okay, so we also got Mark Cerna, or is his name Mark? Cernovich, Mike Cernovich, who's kind of gay, by the way, apparently.
It was a
Apparently.
friend.
He says it. But he's become indistinguishable from a far left wing identity politics woke psycho. He's working a soft cancel culture. I didn't fire Candace, she quit, but he should look up what constructive termination is. I think he made another point regarding contract law, and the fact is, if he fires Candace Owens and a talent contract over this, Daily Wire is going to have to pay out. But
So I imagine it would be closer to a Tucker Carlson situation
I mean, I don't know what Steven Crowder said about the Daily Wire contract and quitting or being fired, but I don't know. There might be something to this, that he's trying to goad her to quit in order to retain some kind of contractual, benefits, so to speak. So, man, she had a follow-up for this that was, she probably tweets 1,000 tweets a day, doesn't she? So she had a follow-up to this that I thought was pretty interesting, and that was where she said Christ is Lord, or Christ is King, is what she would end up tweeting. So
I just like how you pick
Yes.
a fight. You pick a fight with a pregnant woman.
Oh, he did do that, didn't he? So you are utterly out of line for suggesting that I cannot quote biblical scripture. And then she follows that up with Christ is King. So this is that tweet also heard around the world. The Christ is King one, some people saw that as trolling, and sure, it is trolling. I also have no issues with it. And that's why it's like, man, I didn't hit the like button on my Evangelical dark web account, nor did I do it on my personal account either. But I wanted to. I almost wanted to. It's Candace Owens. So we refrain from that because I don't like Candace Owens. I don't think she's genuine about her faith. So
I like the crosses over top of Andrew Clavin above.
hold on. We are going to talk about that tweet that
Okay.
apparently I tweeted out earlier and it went viral.
Right.
So this is a video from the Joe Rogan Experience. It occurred, I believe, in May of 2018, so 5 years ago. And here's Candace Owens talking about faith.
So I had this idea when we were talking, because Charlie is an evangelical Christian. I'm not, right? I believe in
This super smart guy is an evangelical Christian.
is,
So
yeah.
does he believe like Jesus came back to life?
Yes,
Really?
yes, he's an evangelical Christian.
So he
right?
believes that someone died,
Yeah.
and then 3 days later,
Yeah.
they came back to life, and that they walked on water and
Yeah,
healed
I mean,
the
you have
sick.
to. I haven't really gotten into it with him because I'm not the person that should ever be like debating or talking about
Right.
religion. It's not my like shtick, I guess. Right. So
So what do you think of that clip?
Yeah, I mean, one line I put in an upcoming article is that a lot of people like the fruit of Christianity, but they hate the tree, and that's certainly you like the benefits of Christianity, but you don't like the tree. And she doesn't.
Is that the article about the former
Yes.
Muslim to atheist to now Christian? Okay.
Yes. And
So we have an article on that subject coming up. I forget what her name is, or don't want to mess up the pronunciation because I'm super white.
but I mean, that kind of reminds me of that, where she's kind of claiming Christianity because it's like a trad pivot, but
and then she
again,
gets called out on that, And then she's clearly denying the bodily resurrection here, or acting like that's what he believes because he's an evangelical Christian, even though he's super smart.
Only those crazy people believe that, right?
And then she's not like that. He believes these things. It's not like, all Christians believe that, even
Well,
the Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox.
it
And
sounds like she doesn't even know what she believes. She just is kind of accepting the
so
label.
some people push back on this. And to me, this is her clearly denying bodily resurrection.
Yeah, I mean, it is a case of you're not willing to defend even what you believe or even state what you believe.
So I tweeted this out because this was this was in reference to this tweet, which is Candace Owens abandoned by coworkers. Let the record show when Ben Shapiro attacked Candace Owens for quoting Jesus Christ on not being able to serve both God and money, her very Christian coworkers, including Daily Wire co-founder Jeremy Burring, were nowhere to be found. He says Boeing in that. No, he's not a defense contractor, I assure you. So obviously, I have a lot of issues with that picture that was put out there. But let's kind of dissect that. So Andrew Clavin on the left supports sodomy. Candace Owens doesn't believe in bodily resurrection. Jerry Boring is a Judeo-Christian. I think I spelled.
I mean, Jeremy Boring was, if I were a dictator, I would mandate the vaccine.
I mean, he also pushed out Ben Zeislaw from the Daily Wire because he published because he did the Chosen article on the Chosen and gay pride flag.
And he has attacked Candace Owens before, I believe. I think it was closer to the Kanye stuff,
yeah.
or maybe it was over.
This has been brewing for a while, and then
I mean, they had a short feud over a guy named Max Blumenthal, who is Jewish, but he's an anti-Zionist Jew. And Candace, I think, retweeted something that he said, and then Ben Shapiro and I think Jeremy Boring went after him for that, or went after her for that. So this was a couple months back, but it was. So this isn't the second clash between the two of them.
So Matt Walsh believes salvation can occur apart from Christ, and I think I'll do a video on that. And as Brian Babes points out, that Candace Owens also defended the Chosen, so that caused like an intra-Daily Wire civil war, sort of. But it resulted in the ouster of Ben Zeislaw, who then went to the Republic Sentinel, and he's doing very good reporting there.
Now, I would push back.
I wish I had the resources to do what he does.
I might push back on Candace and the bodily resurrection and just say Candace bought a stroller for Dave Rubin because of more of a using more recent evidence. But yes, but I mean, Michael Knowles generally stays out of the drama. Like I think he stayed out of the Crowder drama, I believe. So I think that's his thing is, which I don't blame him of saying I'm gonna not get in the middle of something that might alienate some of his viewers. So just by saying I'm not going to comment on the workplace drama, I think is probably wise for him.
Okay, so I do want to catch up on some chat because some people said that, hey, this is she's Catholic now. Like, is she Catholic in the same way that Cameron Bertuzzi is Catholic? Remember when like all these Catholics got mad at me for calling it a grift, and then he doesn't convert to Catholicism like he said he would? Just saying.
He actually
Catholics
converted.
No, he didn't actually convert.
Okay, so he said he converted.
Because there's a confirmation process to convert to Catholicism. You can't just convert and snap your fingers or whatever. You actually have to go through a process. It's like George Costanza when he wanted to go to Latvian Orthodoxy, except I think Eastern Orthodox is more of a process than Catholicism, but nonetheless, it's not instant, so to speak. So, I don't know how Catholic she really is, but someone pushed. So I tweeted that out. It apparently, got a lot of traction, but someone said that, this was, she had a profession of faith after this, but no, same time, same year, she's also doing a convocation at Liberty University in which they tout her faith. Even though, like, what gave the impression that she was a Christian prior to her making religion her stick?
I mean, but she picked out a stroller for Dave Rubin and his child.
The
I mean, there's multiple levels of sin in that.
yes. So that's
And that's from 2022. So that's, we don't even have to go back to 2018.
so this isn't before she didn't deny the bodily resurrection before she professed faith in Christ. She was grifting and spoke at Liberty University the same year. So, and then I left Michael Knowles alone in the tweet because I don't know enough about him. Like
Like I
Matt Walsh
said,
has specifically denied salvation through Christ alone.
I
He
mean,
specifically denied that.
but he's also he does stay out of some of that drama. Certainly more than Shapiro and Boring.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's commendable. So, the Tucker Carlson thing is something I want to talk about as well. So Tucker Carlson, obviously the biggest name in conservatism, and here's a quote from him.
There's also, I can't help but notice that your views reflect mine. I would say pretty much. I'm an American. I was horrified by what happened on October 7th. I think it was pretty strange. I don't really understand how it happened, but innocents died, and that's awful. And I hated watching that. And I feel so sorry for the Israelis who were killed. However, there's an emotional response that is disproportionate, I think, on the part of some commentators. I mean, our country's being invaded right now by millions of young men whose identities we don't know, who probably don't even like America, and they're now living here. Over 100,000 Americans die every year of fentanyl. I've known a couple. Those are real tragedies. I've never seen anything like the emotion from any commentator around those tragedies as I'm watching about a foreign tragedy. I think that's odd. There's also, I can't help but...
So your thoughts on Tucker Carlson's apparently controversial statement?
I mean, that's a man that's keeping his eyes on the prize and the real problem affecting our society. And again, it was this week, Wall Street Journal put out a propaganda piece by I want to say a Likud party member and a Mossad agent, basically an op-ed that basically advocated that Americans take in the people of Gaza and Palestine into our country. So going back to the people that, push a lot of the Charlie Kirk quote at the beginning, but yeah, the immigration, the invasion at the border is the real threat, and anything that detracts from that is basically a threat to the country in a sense, where you're undermining essentially what is a war effort to try to get people to care about the border. And because that's the number one problem affecting this country, and then the economy would probably be number two. And
I mean, one doesn't help the other.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
sure.
They're both feeding into each other. But I mean, yeah, Tucker Carlson is keeping his eyes on the prize and not losing sight of the real threat.
And what he's right about is, yes, there is a disproportionate reaction from conservative media about this tragedy than there are other tragedies. And it's not like, events like, terrorist attacks don't happen every day. Again,
I mean, let's be honest, no one's talking about Nigeria, and it's worse there than whatever happened in Gaza or Israel.
Yeah, I think that's true. So just to catch up on some comment, that's an old Joe Rogan clip. I did say when it was. It was from May or April 2018. So it is 5 years old. But it's also the same year she's giving convocation lectures at Liberty University, grifting off of religion. So you got to understand something about Candace Owens. She became a big name because of a hate crime committed against her, right? And then she parlayed that into a thing called Social Autopsy, which was a Kickstarter campaign that she launched that got banned from Kickstarter because it was basically, we're going to dox people. Basically, that's what that was. And then she tried to form an alliance with the Gamergate people, had a falling out with the Gamergate people, and then from there built a conservative audience. What's funny is if you go back and see the reporting on the Social Autopsy thing and the Gamergate at the time, you'll see the Breitbart comment section hate Candace Owens, and then After she has a falling out with the Gamergate ladies, the Breitbart comment section's in her corner. It is crazy, and it's like 2 days apart. Like the same crowd hated her. And then from there, she built a platform of red pill conservatism. And here's something else I tweeted, that Candace Owens is the product of Judeo-Christian conservatism because they love tokenism. She fit that bill. That's why she was on PragerU. She became a PragerU person, and then she became a Daily Wire person, I believe. Is the history of her career. So that's why we have Candace Owens, is because of certain people. Dennis Prager, for instance, seriously elevated her platform, as did Charlie Kirk. So she's a product of Judeo-Christian conservatism, and it's just so ironic that they're trying to take her
Well,
out.
I mean, yeah, I mean the whole attractive black woman conservative is kind of a trope that's being elevated because you saw this with Kim Klacik, who got from Maryland Congress candidate in
She
the
used to be a stripper.
Yeah, in this and it was a 70-30 district, but she got plenty of money to run and get her butt kicked twice in the same year.
She got to speak at the RNC.
Yeah, so I mean, it is. She's not the
So,
only person to exploit this trope.
so what side was of Gamergate was Candace on? She tried to side with the people, the liberal ladies that were game developers or whatever. She tried to side with them, but it didn't work out because they didn't like her social autopsy idea. Because even they thought it was bad. And yeah. So that's the history of her. And that's why she's a thing.
But Candace Owens at least called out Kim Klacik, so give her credit on that. She knows
It's
recognized
strange
game.
because game recognized game.
She knows what
competition.
She knows competition when she sees it.
That she does, and
no one's stepping
not
on
everyone
her
does, because you got people like Michael O'Fallon who see anything as competition, and they don't like people like us. So game recognized game, and she knows to snuff it out.
So Candace might be the number one figure in conservative Inc. that starts drama now. It used to be Elijah Schaffer. Now I think it is firmly Candace Owens.
Someone mentioned that he was booted from Blaze TV over the Sydney Watson thing, which if you've read that lawsuit like I have, it's wild. Man, it's like there's no way she's going to win this lawsuit. Because it all depends on the conditions of the contract, and if the show is ill-defined, how many penis jokes are on the show is not. Anyway, it is that lawsuit is a textbook reason why you don't hire feminists in conservative media, because they will just sue you for sexual harassment. They will weaponize that against you, because that's your break the glass if my career fails. So, you didn't like Candace Owens airing Crowder's dirty laundry. And the funny thing is that she was professionally jealous that Crowder broke that story on the Nashville Manifesto or the Tranifesto. She was professionally jealous that Crowder broke that story. So, and that's why she didn't want to promote it. And then she's promoting something that she has no real source and information on, which I have a rumor mill that says that what she's saying is possibly true, but if Candace Owens is the only one reporting on it, not safe to even touch it. So, that being said, you got anything else you want to cover? Because can
we talk about Nikki Haley for president?
I had that in the description. Let me read the description that I had in my live stream announcement, because that was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. It was a smart person joke, I think, but let's see if you guys are smart enough to appreciate my humor. So, live stream discussing Conservative Inc. features a lot of topics, such as some Glenn Beck content that I've wanted to talk about, the Ben Shapiro Candace Owens feud, Joel Berry's feminism, and Nikki Haley's Dharam Yud against Anons. And that is like a Hindu Sikh word for justified righteous war. So I busted that in because I think that's funny because I don't know, I'm a little nerdy like that. So that is Nikki Haley. So what are your thoughts on her war against the Anons?
I mean, she's getting slammed a lot harder than Jordan Peterson was for making similar comments, except she wants more state power behind it. But obviously, it's the same exact. It's the same point, no more anonymous accounts, no more anonymous trolls online. Like she's basically doing what Jordan Peterson did, and getting a lot more flack for it.
I do got one more thing that's pretty funny to talk about.
But obviously,
We're to end on a good note, I guess.
but obviously, she's not running for president of the United States.
Godward Podcast says, read Galatians. And I am in the middle of Galatians, by the way. So very good time to be reading Galatians.
Well,
but
I'm in
time to read Galatians.
I'm in Matthew, so Candace Owens' Bible tweeting was, close to where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I'm specifically in Galatians 4, which is, the anti-Dispy, one of the anti-Dispy chapters. So I think the primary is over for Nikki Haley, but I don't think Nikki Haley stood a chance of winning. I saw a poll out of Iowa, and I don't know whether this was exclusive. Like you had to choose who's the one you're most opposed to winning the nomination. Like who's the person you're most opposed to? Because the numbers maybe add up to 100. They certainly do not go past 100. It was Chris Christie was like at 30% opposition rate. Trump was somewhere in the mid 20s, and then Nikki Haley was double digits as well. Everyone else, even Vivek, as polarizing as he is, was single digits. So I think this was a most. Who do you most oppose in the Iowa caucus was the poll, and it was Christie, Trump, and Haley were 1, 2, and 3. Your thoughts on that?
Christie, Trump, Haley?
Yes.
I mean, not surprising.
And then Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis were tied, but
I mean,
they
probably
were like at 5%.
But it does probably just show the impact of the recent debate probably being very negligible.
I mean, I think it's bad for Nikki Haley if you're already at double digits. And that's before the Anon comment. Her fatwa against being Anon on social media, like many of you guys in the chat are. So I do got one more treat for you. And then we'll wrap up. This one's pretty hilarious. Are you familiar with the Whatever podcast?
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar.
Well, this is a treat.
Is this Candace Owens on Whatever?
No.
Oh.
We are going to discuss modesty and women modesty.
My favorite subject.
Your favorite subject?
I don't know.
Hold on.
Fifteen-second points. Go ahead.
I think that was a
No. Hold on. She goes first, then you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask you something.
Sure.
You're a bikini barista, right?
Yes.
And a hardcore conservative, kind of, or some like you're on.
I'm not hardcore conservative.
You're leaning
no.
right.
Yeah.
So, and
No audio?
I'm hearing it.
You hearing the audio in the chat? Bump up the audio.
you don't like sex work.
No.
So why do you think? And you're a Christian. So
Yeah.
how are you a Christian and against sex work, but yet you're in a bikini all day serving food and getting tips?
You don't think
that's a
that
good
Christians?
question.
You don't think that Christians can go to the beach in a bikini? You don't think that?
Yeah, but that's still.
So this is the Whatever podcast. It's a dating podcast, and the person that's a bikini barista, which is exactly what it sounds like. The person that's a bikini barista claims to be a Christian, claims to be a traditional, modest woman. So I wanted to end on a positive note, but this is hilarious.
I feel like I need a picture to make a judgment call.
We will
for a friend, of course.
No.
But like
They're going to show her Instagram, which says
Okay.
Christ above all. Literally on this Instagram.
So like that's like a lot of sex workers do like bikini barista.
Yeah, because
you're not
they're probably
practicing.
also
You're not.
selling their pussy on the
You're
side.
not.
Just let them.
You're not like you're not practicing modesty or anything that's in the Bible.
What's
so
your
this,
definition of modesty?
Not being in a bikini.
Not being in a bikini.
So you wouldn't let your wife at the beach in a bikini?
I'm not saying that I wouldn't let my wife go to the beach in a bikini.
You
but
make
I
extra
wouldn't-
tips.
I
Let's
wouldn't-
pull
I
up
wouldn't
her
want-
Instagram.
I wouldn't
Should we
want
pull up
her
the Instagram?
working
Can you
just in a
not?
bikini.
Not you don't want what's wrong with this?
You make extra tips for being in the bikini, and
I'm just
so
just a show.
shaming sex workers. Like you're basically a stripper, so I don't understand
a
why.
stripper, yeah, because I touch
I don't
people and
think
I
that's
dance
fair.
on people for money.
Do you have a
think that's
problem?
fair.
Just
She's
like,
not-
did
she's
you have
not
a
a
man?
stripper.
Did you have?
I think that calling her a stripper is pretty comparable.
Again, I need to actually know what we're talking about as far as bikini. Like,
I think
it's.
I think it's exactly as it sounds, that she works at a coffee bar in a bikini. Like this is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty bad. Like, you know, why not just say you work at Hooters or something, like, which probably isn't as bad. As that.
I mean, I don't know. I've never been to Hooters. I don't know whether it has like a reputation that like exceeds it, what it actually is. Like, I don't know. So Chase, who's the base Chad, by the way, basically is saying, you know, swimming in bikini is one thing, but working a bikini is different. I actually would agree with that. No, it doesn't mean both are right. Doesn't mean both, but it's clear that if you're working in a bikini and you're serving coffee, the whole value proposition of that establishment is not the coffee, it's the boobies.
Well, let's just say, as the guy that's been on a lot of time on the dating apps, there's a sliding scale of what is a slutty bikini and what is a modest bikini. And yes, I'm not even saying this facetiously, but there is a difference between this is, you know, what a promiscuous woman wears when she wears a bikini. Like a promiscuous woman will wear a certain type of bikini, and just the normal bikini is perfectly fine. I do think there's slut bikinis out there. It's an actual thing.
I think she clearly falls in the slut bikini category.
I'll be the judge.
Okay, well, you will definitely
man that like cheated on you with a
No,
stripper.
in fact, I had a really good father that raised me to have morals.
Me too, and he's watching, and he's very proud of me for my accomplishments. I pay his
to some
rent,
degree. Here.
so thank you very much,
In
babe.
your notes to us, you said most people don't date.
Wait, OnlyFans girl with a father in her life? What the shock.
Or did you have something really quick?
It's not quick. You already know.
Can you just give us a 20-second blurb?
What is it?
I wanted to say that I actually really appreciated his argument against, you know, the concept of rights. Like, it was a really good, thought-provoking way to put things, that rights don't actually exist. I would like to say, for consideration, rights were taken away. That is why the concept of
We can't take away something that doesn't exist.
Okay.
Interrupting?
Oh, sorry. Go.
Rights were taken away. The concept that we have of rights was taken away from black people and other groups which we would consider minorities. That is why the concept has to exist, just to verbalize what was taken away from minority groups.
This is why liberalism is bad.
So for you, you said in your pre-show notes to us, most people don't date for marriage anymore. It's extremely hard to find a traditional wife-husband who wants to raise their children under biblical values.
Yeah.
Now, I guess my question for you is, how do you reconcile that statement with the fact that you are a bikini barista and don't appear all that traditional in your social media presence? And that's why I wanted to, if we can, pull up the Instagram.
So I want to pause right here. Yeah, he's asking the obvious question, and she put it in the show notes. And her answer is going to be to like deny that it's a problem for her, in the sense that she doesn't care.
Well, it depends on what you mean by
ahead,
traditional. Nick. Traditional to me means submitting to your husband. Traditional to me means being a good Christian. It means being.
How can you find one?
But what about modesty?
What do you mean? I am modest.
In the
currently, but like while you're at
my actions, I am a very, very modest person.
Sex work is not modest.
I'm not in sex work.
She's not a sex worker, but look,
I'm definitely. I would never touch someone for money. I would never do anything gross like that for money. I'm good.
What was your name again?
Savannah.
Savannah. Mm-hmm. To Brian's point, look, you're a beautiful woman. You're intelligent. I think you're well spoken.
Thank you.
You're welcome. to Brian's point, I haven't seen your social media. It sounds like is there an abundance of bikini pics?
Yes.
Here, we'll pull it up just for.
Okay.
I'm proud of my body. Like,
Scroll
there's
down
nothing.
So
The thing is,
hold on, I want to pause. It says Christ above all else.
Okay. I mean, honestly, the whole bikini barista thing is the least of my problems. Those are, I mean,
That's the least of your problems when you see this.
yes, because she actually looks like an OnlyFans model. On this,
I mean,
Instagram.
those are fake boobs, clearly. She has fake lips and probably also a fake nose. I don't even think that was a straw man. Like, I think they're caping for her a lot because she said some base things on abortion.
is that everybody associates nudity to sexuality, and to
Playboy
me,
bunny
it's
costume.
not the same.
We must stay focused, brothers.
And if you're lusting over me, that is your sin.
I completely disagree with. Hold on one second. Okay, so Brian, what was her statement about finding it difficult to find?
Most people don't date for marriage anymore. It's extremely hard to find a traditional wife.
Okay, were those slutty bikinis just a follow up on that?
Yes.
Okay, so
if I saw that on a dating app, I would assume she was a slut, or again, an OnlyFans model, because if the shoe fits, in this case, if the bikini fits, which it barely does. So,
a husband who wants to raise their children under biblical values.
Okay, so
how do you reconcile that?
I'm saying this with all due respect. I genuinely respect you.
Thank you.
As a traditional Christian man who wants a traditional Christian wife, to be quite frank, if I saw your Instagram page, immediately I would write you off as a non-traditional, non-Christian woman. I would assume that you weren't Christian. When I see a woman's Instagram page and I see bikini pictures all over the place, showing off the booty, all that kind of stuff, I'm like, yo, this is the exact opposite of modesty. And I'm not interested in that. And I would argue that you are probably making it much more difficult on yourself to find the kind of man that your heart longs for by living this kind of lifestyle where you're posting these images of yourself. Because I know a lot of traditional Christian dudes, a lot of them, across the board, they want modesty in women, and they would not classify that Instagram page as modest.
Sure, that's fine. I'm not really looking for a husband, though. I was just stating that it is hard. To be fair.
Part of the reason why it's hard is because I think you're making it harder on yourself with the job that you work and also with your Instagram presence.
Okay, sure, that's valid.
So,
I mean,
one thing I got to say, one thing about the Whatever podcast, and every time I see clips of it, I want a pickle helm, which is the helmet that she's wearing. I want a pickle helm. But anyway, yeah, she's basically like, I'm a traditional woman. I'm a Christian, Christ above all else, but I'm not really looking for marriage.
Well, again, how she's positioned in this video, you don't necessarily see all the fake equipment she has.
The lips.
Well, okay, yeah, a little bit. You see it more up here on the face, but you don't, like, she's actually not dressing like a slut, which is very common on that show. And honestly,
it's very common in this episode, even.
Honestly, her, like, the bikini barista thing is the least of my problems. Like, the Instagram account.
Okay, do you think that she's not looking for marriage, but she's also looking for, for lack of a better term, penis?
Like, I would be shocked if she's not a, selling.
If she doesn't have, you would be shocked if she didn't have a double-digit body count.
Well, that too, but I would be shocked if she wasn't trying to sell you a premium subscription for like $10 a month, because that's the type of content women that do that put out.
Yellowmall says she 100% goes to a prosperity church.
Well,
and what's funny is you see a lot of these people that aren't OnlyFans models, but they're they make money off of their appearance and on social media, and a lot of them have like an evangelical mindset. So it's weird, but it's like, and they can't reconcile that with what they do. So it's weird. Same right. I wouldn't be shocked if she was a virgin but a legalist. I don't know. she's definitely she has some sort of code that she follows, but it's clearly not one that's really reconcilable with the Christian faith.
I mean, Christian on Sunday and pagan
Saturday night.
Back to pagan on Monday. I don't know.
Walk of shame Saturday, church Sunday.
And isn't it using sexualization to get money?
No, I'm not doing anything sexual at all.
You literally are in a bikini with your ass out getting tips. I know how it works.
She wants to smoke. Well, I just
okay, are you not
get tips just like
can you not be a bikini, be in a bikini and be a Christian? What the fuck?
Azure, it's Azure, right?
But
I give you.
It is.
I
Look,
give
it
you
is
credit.
not modesty.
You want the
well,
smoke
it depends on your definition.
Okay, so my definition.
In Europe, it's considered modest, right? Like
okay, in Europe, it is not considered modest to be a bikini barista.
Okay, can we just point out the fact that what makes it especially immodest is the equipment that has work done to it to make it more enlarged.
I mean, she literally got stripper boobies put in.
Yeah.
And then she's claiming Christ above all else. So
now, I generally don't agree with the ethos on this show, but this one does have a valid point.
And I think the host and the special guest, which would be Sovereign Bra on Twitter, I think they're being too kind. And they're like, no, that's a straw man. I'm like, I don't think that's a straw man. I think that's
not a straw man if you see that
It's not a straw man to say that she is exactly like a stripper in a setting that doesn't allow full nudity. I don't think that's a straw man.
Not with that Instagram, it's not.
Yeah, definitely not.
Like if she had, again, not with that Instagram.
I think there's some more.
you go out onto a beach, you're naked.
Savannah.
Sounds like it's
Savannah. Hold on.
That's not
Savannah,
when you're getting tipped.
hold on. Savannah, you're
getting
saying
tipped to make coffee.
Ladies, please.
With your ass out.
Please
so don't
stop.
shame sex workers. That's all.
She
I'm
wants
Not
smoke.
sex work. Holy shit.
It's very. It's
not. I'm not touching anyone for money. You're lusting after me. I'm not doing shit. I'm making coffee.
You, Savannah, are eliciting lust from men by dressing this way.
Well, that's the same thing.
No, that's like putting your breasts in a man's face and being like, "Why are you looking at them?"
No, it's not.
Yes,
I would never do that.
You literally do it for a living.
Come
You flaunt
through
your
my
body.
coffee stand.
Hang on,
Like,
let me ask
that's
this. What's the distinction when you say they're lusting after me? Couldn't the stripper make the same argument?
Yeah, except for a stripper's touching and doing sexual.
Okay, so
hang on.
It seems like you're just like trying
let's
to
say
find
the stripper never
there's
touched
a fine
him.
line between
Let's say the
using
stripper
your-
never touched him, never touched any
On
of
the
the
pole,
johns.
still on
Just
the
showed
pole.
up and shook her ass. That's all she did.
Sure, I don't do that.
Yeah, but let's say that's all she did. Okay, she's not touching anybody now.
Sure.
She's using her sexualization to make money. Wouldn't just like you are, right?
No.
What's the distinction then?
The difference is that you're dancing and you're shaking your ass and you're doing that to elicit a feeling to get money, right?
And what is the bikini for?
So the bikini, no.
So the bikini is so you can get that feeling while sipping a coffee.
I'll have the venti.
The venti. I don't think they do venti, but it's like that's literally what that's for. Like, is she getting tips because of her personality? No. And Brian Babes points out that it's okay because there's no contact, and she makes sexualized poses, and I mean that's we can't necessarily prove that, but isn't that the whole value proposition of that establishment? Is that you do it in a bikini?
Seems like you're trying to
Wait,
justify the reason
One
why.
sec.
I am a Christian, but I think women should be head of household. I am all for women with stake in the game, but the sword penetrates the chalice, not the other way around. We see reality.
Real.
So that show, when they get a $200 super chat, through a service, they automatically read it out loud, and otherwise they don't do it. Like that's a pretty good
99,
stream.
but yes.
That's
real.
Yeah, thank you, Bum, man. Appreciate it.
What does that mean?
Look, this whole idea that like it's on men to control their lust. Yes, okay, I agree. Men have the responsibility to control their lust, but women also have a responsibility to not elicit that lust from men.
By what I'm wearing.
By you
to
choosing.
Be specific.
Yes.
By
Savannah,
what I am wearing.
Savannah, come on. If there's two women and one is
So am I
wearing-
eliciting that when I
Please
go
let
to the
me
beach
speak.
with my
Please
bikini?
let me
Okay,
speak.
I apologize.
If there's two, thank you. If there's two women and one of them is wearing a modest dress and the other woman is wearing a bikini that shows off her breasts and her butt, obviously men are going to lust. They're more likely to lust after the woman that's in a bikini with all of her curves showing. She is making a choice to wear something that shows off her body. She is going to elicit lust. Do you concede that?
I agree, but that is also not my responsibility to be responsible
Let me
for
ask
your
it a
lustful
different way.
That's
thoughts.
fine. It's you can say it's not your responsibility, but just don't call yourself traditional or modest.
Well, let me
I
ask this a
am.
different
You're
way.
not.
I mean,
there is-
that was pretty good of Chase.
I mean,
in that
I
clip.
might push back and say if there is a sense that a woman is more attractive when she dresses modestly, but you know,
I think it's
and
true
I
in
honestly
this
think she is more attractive wearing that than she is in her
Instagram.
Yeah, so her wearing more clothes actually makes her more attractive than the fake equipment beneath the neckline.
So, I mean, that's a hot take for sure. Let me see if there's more.
That's fair.
Inside of your
agree to
capacity as a bikini barista, can you name a single virtue of being a bikini barista? What is a single virtue? What about it is in any way virtuous?
I'm not going to answer that. Like, I don't know what you're trying to get out of that question.
Maybe she doesn't know what it means.
If a guy,
it's not a job that I enjoy doing.
Yeah,
it's not like it's my dream job. I have two college degrees.
Do you aspire to be
on
the?
it.
Do you aspire to be the Proverbs 31 wife?
I don't know.
Well, you agree that
I may
Christians,
not get married.
just
I
to
don't
follow up on this, you agree that Christians need to be virtuous, right?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
What are the virtues?
I mean, I think the Proverbs 31 wife question is just very revealing about this Christ above all Instagram with, fake boob bikini pictures.
I don't think she even knows what the Proverbs 31 thing is. So she doesn't know how to answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think she got caught flat-footed not knowing the Bible passage. And I don't know if she knows what the word virtue means either.
Of being a bikini barista.
I never said that there was virtues of being a bikini barista.
But when you're asked specifically to say, "Hey, listen, it's not my problem that these guys over here they all want to put their hands all over me. They can't, but they want to, and that's why I make extra money."
I mean, that
but
happens
stripper
when I have
over there,
clothes on,
they're doing
too.
something wrong. That's insane.
No, that's fine. But even
That's
when
a
I have clothes
hypocrisy,
on,
and
men
there's
are
no
the same
virtue.
thing.
There's
That's
no
fine.
virtue.
Yeah.
We can agree to disagree on that. But men want to do the same
There's
thing
no
when I
di-
have clothes on too. I could be wearing a potato sack, and men would still want to do that.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, because men have sex drives. But if you're wearing a bikini, it is
But that
going
is
it is
your
going to stimulate a man's sex drive.
Then that's
Anything
just
could
like
stimulate
Savannah,
a man's sex
Savannah,
drive.
Savannah,
Should I wear a hijab
Savannah.
then?
No, you don't have to wear
Like-
a hijab.
I prefer a burqa, to
You don't-
be honest.
You don't
Burqa,
have to,
okay.
but Savannah, just like it's a man's job, it's a man's
Get the rocks.
responsibility to control his lust. It's
Get the
also
rocks. Get
a
the rocks.
woman's responsibility. If she calls herself a traditional modest Christian,
Hikima
to not
donated
inspire lust.
$200. Abortion is a necessary evil, should be strictly regulated. God-given rights made up. Andrew W. Brixham, PLS. Stop showing these girls half-naked pics. I don't have Insta for reason. Only 304s.
Okay.
Chase
all right.
W.
Thank you.
That is
Question:
true,
if you
100%
start dating
true.
a guy you're
What?
About the Instagram.
Yeah, no one really wanted to see that, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure some of you people who need to repent in the comment section do need to,
That was
maybe
it's
want to
even
see
worse
that.
than I imagine her barista outfit is far more modest than the rest of her Instagram.
But
But
why are you going to a bikini barista in the first place? It's because you just want to sip and enjoy.
I
right?
think it's because you want to jumpstart your day with a
yeah,
20
you're trying
ounce
to,
coffee
yeah, exactly.
with cream on top.
No.
boyfriend or your husband, if he requested you take down those photos, would you oblige him?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Do you think it might improve if you were interested in dating, do you think it might improve your dating prospects in the traditional Christian male pool to remove those photos?
Yeah, it probably would. But the thing is that I'm not dating right now. I'm not interested in dating right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm just living
What
my
I'm
life,
curious
having
about
fun.
still, if you just don't mind, one last follow-up.
And then I'm going to bring Selena finally in.
My big curiosity here still is I'm caught up on this idea that you have no responsibility. I have
crazy.
no responsibility. It's their responsibility for the
Muslims
because
would say
hang on,
let him finish his point. No interrupting.
Nationale donated $200. Azir's only W all night. She's right. You are basically a stripper, just like in states that don't allow female strippers to strip nude.
Yeah.
No difference. You just want to feel different from the of girls.
Whatever you say.
Yeah, well, in this case, this super chatter hits the nail on the head. And what the super chatter is saying is the same thing I'm going to tell you or ask you, which is, why couldn't anybody engage in sex work?
Grid One Motorsports donated $200.
Yo, thank you, Grid One. Appreciate it, man.
I leave you alone for a few minutes, and wow. To Savannah,
wild.
would you make the same tips if you were in a modest dress?
Right. Well,
That's
this
what
gets
you
to the
guys
heart of
know.
it real quick. So, all of the women who are involved in any kind of sex work, you realize, can use the same exact argument you just did, which is to say the responsibility is 100% on the John. If he wasn't coming to have sex with us, then I wouldn't even be a prostitute, would I?
No,
if the
'cause you're
John wasn't coming in to watch me strip,
You're
I wouldn't even be able to
consenting
strip,
that
would I?
action. You're doing a
shifting-
sexual
hang on, let me-
action.
just
So
let
are
me
you.
finish the
No,
point.
I'm not.
Yes,
What am I
you
doing
are.
that's
You're
sexual?
making coffee in a bikini.
That's not
inherently
sexual.
sexual.
And you
Yes,
get
it
tips.
is.
No, it's
You
not.
get-
Why
you
does
get
it- why-
paper
I'm not
dollar
dancing
tips
on
like
someone. I'm
every
not
other
touching
stripper.
somebody. I'm not doing anything.
Why would a woman walk into her bedroom on her wedding night in lingerie for her husband? Because
Lingerie
that
and bikinis are
lingerie
very
is inherently
different.
sexual. They're very different in the sense that there's lace on it and it's different
No,
materials, but
no.
you're showing off
I'm
the curves
covered.
of your body
No,
to
yeah.
stimulate your man's
so you
sex
want-
drive.
Might as well just go to the beach and
So
lingerie.
you want
then,
them to
right?
believe.
The men who are buying coffee
hang on,
are
hang
tipping
on, I
you
just
in.
want-
So I will say there is a difference between what is modest at a beach and what is modest in a coffee shop. I do think there is a distinction in that. That's not really weighing in on the bikini debate at all. But yeah, there is no getting around that. You know, she's getting more tips because she's in a bikini. That's why she's mid-20s and doing that.
I mean,
Does-
she's got a. I mean, she doesn't, have an account, or an OF account, but her Instagram account would be the same Instagram account of someone that does.
And they're kind of touching on a debate about vice. Is it the supply of vice what begets demand, or is it demand that begets the supply? And I think it's the supply of, the supply of heroin is what begets a demand for heroin, because at the end of the day, someone's selling it. Someone's getting sold on it. Or, same thing with the prostitute at a street corner. They're the ones eliciting the demand for lust because male sex drive already exists. They're trying to create a demand to pay for their services. That's the point of standing on a street corner. And the same thing with OnlyFans girls and Instagram and Twitter.
No, it's
They're
temptation.
trying to elicit lust.
It's temptation.
That is their street corner.
Temptation that creates desire, which desire gives way to sin, and sin leads way to death. So
Exactly. I mean, there's internal sin as well, but what in this case, the external temptation triggers that and sends people down a cycle. It's a stumbling block.
Just
Dollars
this
like
last
the
thing, because this will
strippers.
make your point too.
They're coming
Just
to
like-
get
You
coffee
honest-
because you're in a bikini.
Yeah, you
they could go to a
honest-
better coffee shop.
Then that's their issue.
Well,
but
could
I'm
you
making
honestly
coffee.
say that
But
you're
you know
That's my-
exactly why
Yeah.
you work that job to make more money
It's
and
the
tips.
same reason
Yeah,
you're
I can
posting
make more
bikini photos on your Instagram to solicit
Yeah,
sexual
can you honestly
attention.
say that your employer was like, I want you to wear a bikini because it's really hot in here?
I don't give a shit what my employer
Is that
thinks.
what your employer was like? I want you to wear a
I
bikini
don't
because
give a
it
shit.
gets up to like 90 and I want you to be cool while you're working. Why do you think your employer wants you to wear a bikini while you're
That's
serving
their
coffee?
responsibility. If they come through because
Yeah,
they
but
want
why do you
coffee
think
or
he
they
does?
want to look at my ass,
Girl,
that's
work at
their
Starbucks.
responsibility.
If you want a husband one day and you're a Christian, work at Starbucks.
Nah, I'm good. They support abortion.
Okay.
Wait.
We'll find another hometown coffee
And you
shop.
support sex work, so.
No, I know. That's literally not sex work.
Yeah, it's literally sex work.
literally not sex work.
It's literally
It's-
sex
it's
work.
still
not
soliciting your body
It's not
just like a
debatable.
sex
It's not
worker.
sex work.
And you
It's
get,
not sex. I'm not doing anything sexual whatsoever.
and then they hand you
Except the
cash
sex
tips
work.
after you.
It's literally not sex work.
Wait, Nick, what's going on?
I think she's dipping, bro.
Wait, no, it's the.
All right. That is the end of that section. Final thoughts.
I mean, yeah, some people have the mental capacity of hitting your head against the wall, and they will go through extremes to justify their delusion.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
So I guess I wanted to play that clip because first of all, it's hilarious to me, but second of all, that's conservative media, is it not?
In
Is
many ways,
she
yeah.
not a perfect representation of conservative media?
I mean, this is a phenomenon I've certainly noticed over the years is that, there's always like people always ask, hey, where are the men at? Where are the men at? Well, in a lot of these races, they literally put up the busty woman in place of probably several guys that were running in that same race. You got Nancy Mace, attractive woman, a very nice woman, can't keep her boyfriend's hands off her in the morning as she's going to a prayer breakfast. Beyonce, my apologies. But
her third
Lauren
husband,
Boebert,
DP.
who's kind of white trash, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, and getting fondled in a movie theater or a theater,
I mean, if that was her husband, I'd have way less of an issue with that.
and
But
then going home and presumably sleeping with the Democrat bar owner. And
I mean,
let's
it's
see.
Boulder, Colorado, right? Or
I
that's
mean,
one of the areas that took place in. So yeah, he
I
was going to
mean,
be. He was from Boulder, I think. I'm not
Marjorie Taylor Greene, she was a looker back in the day. I'll admit that.
But she's also, isn't she also divorcing her husband?
Did.
Okay, already did.
Her husband, I think, divorced her, but yes.
Yeah,
But
it's just, yeah, Congress just isn't great for marriage
there's a
anymore, or
lot
at least
of
not with millennials.
there's a lot of simp culture in conservative politics. And let's be honest, Brett Cooper, who works for Daily
Yes.
Wire, to circle back to that.
Does she really look like Snow White? Because I don't think so. I think it's a little forced. But yeah, 100%. She's a
That's
product of simp culture. And is
Yes.
that a problem on the men, or is that a problem because the people in conservative media who, if you want to circle back to certain demographics, want to do this? I mean, Judeo-Christianity, as we talked about earlier in the live stream, touted, tokenism. We're going to have Dave Rubin because he's gay. We're going to have Candace Owens because she's black woman. We're going to have, all these other things, you name it. Is that also the case with, bimbo white women?
Well, I mean, I would say the simp culture also applies to the Candace Owens and Kim Klasiks of the world. Oh, and her name is Luna down in Florida, who DeSantis, helped get elected. But yeah, who's an actual model? Like,
oh, that person won?
yes.
I think I felt like I feel like I heard about their campaign a long time ago. Well, anyway.
So yeah, conservative media likes its simp culture.
And she's a perfect representation of conservative media. She, says all these things, doesn't live the lifestyle that might be most congruent to it, or otherwise undermines those exact beliefs that she espouses or her target audience espouses. Here she is saying, abortion should be illegal, but I'm also a quasi stripper. Make that make sense. And at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense. And that's the same level of inconsistency that you see in a lot of conservative media. So I think, they're just lying to themselves and lying to you. And conservative ink in their lies. Is that a reference to something that was written by Martin Luther? Maybe, but
I don't think so.
But that's hey. You're imagining that, I guess, right? So anyway, I think that's all we got for today.
But yeah, we segued the whatever podcast to conservative politics.
Yes, we did. But I also found that was hilarious, and I had a lot of clips that I wanted to share tonight. It started with the Glenn Beck stuff, and then the Joel Berry stuff, and then I wanted to include the Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro stuff just landed in our laps, and then the whatever thing's just hilarious to me. So I wanted to share that with the class. Anyway, have a blessed night, and we will catch you on the next one, which will be after Thanksgiving. Jared Moore is going to guest appear and talk about his book, Lust of the Flesh, and why evangelicalism went gay, or Big Eva went gay. So have a blessed night. We will catch you on the next one. Hit the like on